I'm Figment, and today we're going to start video 4 in our ongoing series about the subtractor. Last video we finished up the last section in the signal flow of the subtractor, which was the filter section into the master out. Well, the master out itself, but from start to finish, the oscillator section, the filter section, then the master out section. Today we're going to go over the first area of what I would begin to get into calling the mod section of the subtractor, which is, I guess, a lot bigger than the signal flow section, but we'll take it piecemeal and we'll be done before you know it, actually. So the first thing I want to talk about today are envelopes, specifically the amp envelope. Once we can get over the idea of an envelope, it'll make the rest of the envelopes even easier, or just a lot easier to handle, them being the filter envelope and the mod envelope. But we're going to talk about the amp envelope first. Now, in order to help me out with this, I'm going to use a page in the Reason Manual to give a graphical representation of what I'm talking about and what's going on. Now, before I open it up, I'm just going to say the amp envelope has four sliders. Good night. A, D, S, and R. They stand for attack, decay, sustain, and release. So here's a graph showing, I guess you could say level or sound if you want to think about it. And the way it works is you get your ADSR right here, attack, decay, sustain, release. Now, the minute you press a key on your MIDI controller or synthesizer, the attack time begins. Well, what that basically is the time it takes for the sound to reach full volume. The longer the attack time, the longer this slope is going to be before it reaches the full volume or maximum volume. The shorter the attack time, the quicker it's going to be, maybe even just a straight line if the attack time is 0 milliseconds. But this knob here represents time. Higher up, longer attack times; in the middle, medium attack times; and closer to the bottom, quick, if zero, instant attack times. It goes to full volume instantly, so this will curve. Once it hits the maximum volume, the attack time is over, and it then goes over to the decay time. That would be this knob. The shorter or lower the value, the quicker the decay time. The higher the value, the longer the decay time. Now, the decay time is the time it takes for the sound, once it's hit maximum value, which is this dotted line here, to drop down to the sustain level. Now, this is kind of weird. I was going to mention this before, but I'll mention it now. All four of these knobs have something to do with time. I told you about the attack time, I told you about the decay time, I'll tell you about the release time later. But the sustain is a weird guy because it has nothing to do with time. It has to do with a level, a sustain level, see? So, as I mentioned, the attack is how long, or the attack time is how long it takes the volume to reach maximum value. When it's done, it's over. It goes to the decay time. The decay time is how long it takes the sound to reach the sustain level. The sustain level is where the volume will sustain at. So if it's 0, the sound will have some attack. The sound will then decay somewhere, some decay time, and it will decay down to the sustain level of 0, which is complete silence. If you had this up, let's say a little bit, maybe on 20, it would decay down to a low volume. If you had it in the middle, it would decay down to a medium volume level, and so on. If you had it high, it would decay down just, to a high level. It wouldn't decay very far at all. If you had it all the way up, it wouldn't even, if you had the sustain level all the way up, the decay wouldn't have anything to decay down to, because once the attack hits full volume, it's the sustain levels at full volume, so there's no drop of any kind. So decay would kind of be useless. But that's only if the sustain is at full volume. So once you've gone through that, your attack time happens, whatever that may be, a short attack, a long attack. And I will play through these so you can kind of get an audio idea. The decay time, and you've gone to a sustain level. The release knob is, here it is, key up. Once you let go of the key, the release time kicks in, and it kind of sets a fade out for the sound. The longer the release time, the longer the sound will fade out when you've let go of the key. The shorter the release time, the shorter the fade out. And if it's on 0, the fade out will be instant, so the sound will just cut off. So let's kind of play around with this, and I'll give you some real world examples of what this looks like. So I have 2 chords here. I'm just going to play them, and I'm going to play around with this attack time. So I'll make a long attack time first, and now the volume will have a while before it reaches full volume. Let's see what that sounds like. And as I shorten this, that volume has gotten there quicker. If it's 0, it's just at full volume immediately. It just jumps up there. If I bring it up a little bit, or if I really make it long, it's still fading as a really long attack. Now the decay is obviously, like I told you, how long it takes for it to hit the sustain level. Let's have it be 0. So now, and see that decay was quick. Had a rise, fall, into silence. You can make it really short. You can make it even shorter. Just cuts. And if you had a long attack, a long decay, it'll rise and come down in the same fashion. Now if we had a short decay and we put a sustain level on, the volume has somewhere a level to sustain to. Now these chords don't have a, actually maybe I could just do that one time. I'm going to play this chord, and I'm going to let this attack, I'm going to give it a reasonable attack and decay, and I'm going to raise this release so that once this passes through this chord, it's going to have a reasonable fade out because the release has been put up. Well, let's do that this way. That was a short decay. Let's try that way. Whereas if it was a release of nothing, it's going to stop immediately after that MIDI gate is done. So that's kind of the basic idea of an envelope. Graphs definitely help, but it's something you should kind of play around with, experiment with. fool around with till you get it. In the next video, we're going to go over the mod envelope and the filter envelope, because now that we've at least gone over what an envelope is, we should be able to squeeze in 2 envelopes in at least one video. So that's a little teaser for what's up next. Until then, experiment, play around, goof around, but more importantly, have some fun. And I will talk to you later.